Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football Wednesday afternoon. Marcus Freeman, this Notre Dame program, find their next defensive coordinator heading into 2025, and that is going to be Chris Ash. I'm on Twitter. I'm on the message boards with many of y'all Notre Dame fans. I know this was not the most popular name that was thrown around for this defensive coordinator opening. I'll start with this. The biggest piece of storyline for me coming out of this hire is Mike Mickens staying on staff. Ideally, at least in my opinion, getting a co-DC tag. I don't think there's a better position coach maybe in the country than what Mike Mickens has done with this Notre Dame program. Putting a co-DC tag on him, I think that would make a lot of sense. Now, you get into Chris Ash. Again, there are pros and cons to this hire. And I think where I want to start is, look, Marcus Freeman knows defensive football. Marcus Freeman has also shown he knows how to hire coordinators. I mean, one of the sneaky storylines about Marcus Freeman, what he's doing with this Notre Dame program, he's made some really good hires over the last couple of years, right? Mike Denbrock on the offensive side of the football, that was a home run 12 months ago. You look at Al Golden, really, really good hire as well. You kind of have that blind trust specifically on the defensive side of the football that Marcus Freeman's going to get it right. Now, again, it's Chris Ash, the number one candidate that a lot of Notre Dame fans had. And no, probably not. Was he my number one candidate? No, probably not. But I think we're all kind of just having this blind faith in Marcus Freeman to get it right because he's shown us that he can hire coordinators at a damn well high level. Want to get into Chris Ash a little bit, talk about a few things that I do like regarding Chris Ash, talk about some of the question marks we have too before we get into it. As always, to the Notre Dame fans, let it fly in the comment section. A lot of different takes that you can have about this hire, and I'm sure y'all are going to let it fly. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If you guys do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Without further ado, let's get into this. Let's start out with the pros. You know, if I were to sell the Notre Dame fans on Chris Ash, I think it would start with I like the fact that he has spent some time in the NFL the last couple of years. Why do I say that? Because it's a small track record, and we've talked about this with a lot of different defensive coordinator hires that we've seen the last couple of years. Look at the guys that have spent time in the NFL that come down to the defensive side of the football at the college ranks and have a lot of success. Right, Michigan, Jesse Minter, Mike McDonald, Wink Martindale. You look at Danton Lynn and what he's doing out there on the West Coast. You look at Steve Belichick and what he did with the Washington Huskies in 2024. The track record of guys who have spent time in the NFL and then come down to the collegiate ranks, it seems to be pretty dang good. And so that's probably where it starts. And I think secondly, again, if I'm selling the Notre Dame fans, if we're trying to find the pros, the positives in Chris Ash, it's look, Marcus Freeman knows him. Marcus Freeman obviously likes him. I think we have to have that blind faith that Marcus Freeman is going to get it right. Now, what are the question marks that you have with Chris Ash? I think it starts with, look, his last time as a defensive coordinator was at Texas in 2020. Now, I do think it's important to say, like, hey, look, that was the COVID year. That was a really funky year for a lot of different college football teams, including Texas down there in 2020. It was bad. It wasn't good. You can't really defend it. Now, how much are we going to hold that against a guy like Chris Ash? I personally wouldn't hold it that much against him. And then you look at him as a head coach against Rutgers. I throw that completely out the window. I think I'm not going to use the word stupid, one of the worst ways to evaluate a coordinator hire is point to what they did as a head coach. I think Al Golden is one of the really good examples of that. Like, look, sometimes it just doesn't work out for really smart football minds as head coaches, but they're really good coordinators. I'm not going to use it, especially at Rutgers, at that point where Rutgers was as a program. I don't know if many programs or many coaches are winning many games with Rutgers. I don't think that's probably the best way to evaluate it either. So you do have some question marks, specifically from that year at Texas in 2020. It's not the flashiest resume, but the fact that Mike Mickens is staying on staff, the fact that you have Marcus Freeman as your head coach on the defensive side of the football, like, look, I'm not going to worry too much. I'm much more concerned with what we're doing on the offensive side of the football, and I think they crushed that with Mike Denbrock than I am with Chris Ash. Now, you look at some of the takeaways. Again, I think Marcus Freeman probably plays a very heavy hand within this defense. And I think, secondly, really would like to see the elevation of Mike Mickens to that Cody C tag, because if you don't, and this I think is kind of important. Look, if you don't throw that Cody C tag on Mike Mickens, somebody's going to go grab him, because what he's doing is, bar none, some of the best work that you see in the sport. I would have been a fan of just making Mike Mickens the defensive coordinator of this program going into 2025. One of the things that I think is really important, why I think Mike Mickens needs to have a heavy hand in this defense on staff in 2025, is, look, you want continuity. I don't know if there was a more well-coached defense, a defense that knew what they were doing the most, than what you saw with Notre Dame in the 2024-2025 year. And so if you are Marcus Freeman, you're saying, hey, yeah, we lose some guys to the NFL, but we also have a ton of young talent, headlined by guys like Bryce Young and Kingston Viliamu-Musa, multiple defensive backs. You got that young nucleus that were really comfortable playing in 2024. How much continuity can we bring over the 2025 year? That is project number one for Marcus Freeman. And I think allowing Mike Mickens to get that co-DC tag and let him really have his hands on this defense, I think would make a lot of sense. My final takeaway, it would not have been my first choice. The Notre Dame fans know that. We've talked a lot about coordinator candidates, but I'm not about to sit here in my basement and tell Marcus Freeman what to do hiring defensive coordinators, because he's, one, shown me and shown us that he can make really good hires at the coordinator spot. And secondly, ain't nobody know much more about defense than Marcus Freeman. And so you kind of have to have that blind faith that Marcus Freeman got his guy that he thinks can be most effective. Chris Ash is coming into a really talented defense, got a really, he hasn't, maybe outside of the Ohio State time, this is probably one of the best situations he's been in as coach. Because you look at a lot of the other spots that he's been the last couple of years, they haven't been that good of spots after his time at Rutgers. He's kind of been bouncing around, spent some time in the NFL, coming back to a really good situation at Notre Dame. This will get a good feel for Chris Ash was a good hire, not because this defense should be good in 2025. Let it fly in the comments section. That's all I have on. Again, not the flashiest hire, but I do think we all trust Marcus Freeman here. Appreciate you guys, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.